Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Out of Our League. Today we have a really exciting guest, but first, I want to introduce you to our cast and crew. We have Al, the Predator Tribesman.
Hello, hello.
How are you doing today?
Doing well. Very excited for the show.
Me too. I can't wait to tell everyone who we're talking to. It's so much fun. Next up, we have the producer, the man with one job, GF Too Cool. Gage, how are you today?
I'm doing very good. How about you, Phil?
I'm doing very well. All right, next up, we have Potter Pants 212, McKenna. What's going on?
Hi!
How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes, I know you've been a little out. You said you were on vacation, so getting back into the swing of things.
Happy to be back.
I'm glad this is the episode we can get you back onto. Not producing today, so you get to kind of sit back. And last of the crew, we have Serenity Bass. Carl, how are you today?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
How's the DJing going? You still hitting up the DJ streams?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, just doing those once a week. Thoroughly enjoying it.
Nice. And as usual, I am Phil J. Woodward, and I just want to say, Tommie, you're pretty good. And if that wasn't an introduction, Tommie Earl Jenkins. Most of you probably know him as Die Hard Man from Death Stranding. How are you today?
Oh man, I'm so excited to be here. This is an absolute pleasure. I really, really am looking forward to this chat. Yeah. Hey, everyone.
Awesome.
Hey.
So good to have you on.
Thank you.
For those that may not know who you are, or may be seeing this for the first time, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, my name's Tommie Earl Jenkins. I am a singer, creative actor, voice actor, a little bit of everything, jack of all trades. I've sort of been working in this industry from a very early age. My background began pretty much as a ballet dancer, believe it or not, and a musical theater actor. So theater has been my life since I was 14. And basically everything has kind of followed in that journey between that and, experiencing the pop star style of life in the 90s. So I've kind of flitted through everything. I feel like I've experienced a lot of different things and have quite a body of work, but not that everybody would necessarily by any means know who I am, but I've certainly been around for a while. But yeah, I'm very excited, and voiceover and being a voiceover artist has been a big part of my life, certainly within the last 10 years, certainly just with various things. So
We actually have some questions about your theater background and musical background. How do you feel like with how hard the pandemic was on theater arts and there was a lot of theaters that either got shut down or stage productions that had to stop or crews that were laid off for productions and stuff like that.
Sure.
How important is it to you that these things are preserved no matter what?
Oh man, this is a heart-wrenching situation for me. And certainly coming from a theater background and where the arts are so important. I think we live in a world where sports is put up here and the arts is put here, and somewhere this needs to come up. Because I think it is very important for people to experience the arts, experience the world in which creative minds create such wonderful, wonderful pieces of work that are all inspiring. And I think it's something that it is not paid enough attention to. People are all, companies are constantly applying for grants and, to try to keep that side of the arts alive. It's been very hard during the pandemic because as a theater, as an actor in general, I find that it's been devastating. Broadway was shut down completely. The West End in London, which I've worked a lot in, was shut down. And still, they're just clawing their way back. I mean, I think everything's expected to return around September. Certainly New York, Broadway and things like that. But just in general, live theater, and that's not just the theater, but concerts and orchestras and ballets and, all these things that are so important to the well-being, I think, of the world where people thrive and need those things. It's just been absolutely devastated. And I find that sometimes that the governments haven't really supported those things enough during this time. And certainly with actors being out of work, I've got so many friends who literally had to leave the industry in order to go and get a 9-to-5 job to keep their lives going. Some have given up altogether during this pandemic, and some have just been fortunate to take a sabbatical and come back because their shows are coming back. So not everyone has been that fortunate, but like everybody, we've all gone through something. There's been small businesses that have lost their ability to thrive because of the pandemic, and that's devastating. But yes, I think with the arts, it's been incredibly and the entertainment in general. The one thing that has somehow managed to keep going a bit stronger, I think, is the voiceover side of things, because people have been able now to work from home, to do work on projects. Don't get me wrong, that it has been affected, because I've had projects that I've had delayed or indeed canceled that were big projects that I was so looking forward to doing that have been postponed for indefinite times, or it will happen. It's just a matter of how soon we can get things back, or having to travel to go and do some stage work or whatever it is, So, but to be able to do voice work, I've been able to use my home studio setup to work on some projects while being away if I wasn't able to go into a studio. So I think some of that has kept people going. And it's amazing to see how many home studios have cropped up during the pandemic. People have gotten so creative, and figuring that that's a way to go. So, I think we've been fortunate in that respect, but not to say that we still haven't been affected by it.
Yeah, I think with animation, it's been a huge boon to the community, because it's allowed a bunch of new artists to get into the voice acting space, because with animation, it's not about facial capture and
Correct.
things like that. It's more about mouth movements and stuff. So people have been able to use these home studios and do voiceovers for car commercials or animation or whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We were talking before the show about how much Zoom and Discord have allowed people to connect with each other. And there have been stage productions that have been filmed before throughout, history of theater productions. Obviously, the biggest one in recent history is Hamilton, even being available on Disney Plus. Do you think digital platforms and the how much streaming media has become a thing, do you think there's a place for that for theater? Like, if there was the ability to buy a ticket to a live stream of a show, or to see more stage productions on a digital streaming service?
I mean, I think it's interesting. I think we get into a territory of how that is dealt with. Like, for instance, having Hamilton to be available on Disney Plus, I think, is a great way to introduce people to the theater when things are done that way and done in such a way that it's brilliantly filmed. That's not just captured one performance. I think they filmed it over a number of performances and were able to edit together to create this amazing piece of work. I was fortunate enough to have seen Hamilton live on stage. And to be fair, nothing ever beats sitting in a theater watching a live performance. It's impossible to capture that in a videotape or a stream. You just can't get it. You're not there to physically feel that energy, and we thrive on that as artists and as people who go to be a part of a live performance. It's the same way with going to a rock concert. You can watch the rock concert being filmed brilliantly from Wembley Stadium, but unless you are there, you will never know what that energy is really truly like, to be surrounded by all of that. But I think that if there is a way in which it allows people who are not able to pay such high prices for tickets, but can afford to watch it on a streaming platform, and it still is a way of introducing them to the theater and some great performances, by all means, sure. I think it's a wonderful option to be able to do, and maybe there's an option in which at some point they'll be able to sell tickets to, once shows are opening and performing 8 times a week. Maybe if that show is sold out, you could buy a ticket to the live stream of that particular performance. So all the performances would therefore be live streamed 8 times a week, as if the theater. So if you don't get a chance to get into the live show, you can log on and watch that very same performance being streamed live as you watch it. So you're getting the full unedited experience. So if something happens on stage that night that is a mistake, or an actor forgets a line, or someone trips and falls, you will be able to experience that live. So that's an interesting aspect of something. I don't know. Somebody's going to pick that up. You watch. I'm going to pick it up. You heard it here first.
Real quick, technical thing. Could you turn your camera off and on real quick? I think there might be a delay with your audio.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone else was seeing it, but
How's that?
That's perfect. We're back.
Okay, we're back.
Awesome. Yeah, so theater is something that has been a huge part of my life. It got me through a very dark childhood.
Right. Okay.
And allowed me to expand just about everything about my life in a way that made me a better person overall. And I absolutely know what you mean as far as feeding off the energy of the crowd and hearing just kind of the or feeling that energy as you're in a performance, especially if you're singing on stage or dancing on stage. It can be very hard if it feels like, I don't know how to describe it other than like cold.
Right.
But it is absolutely amazing what these creators are able to do in such a small space. When you think about how small a stage is, and you think about some of the how some productions are literally just a dark stage. There's nothing else on the stage.
Believe me.
And yeah, it's just amazing to be able to watch that and feel that energy, and to kind of create, similar to reading a book, create that world in your own mind, and what you're seeing there.
Absolutely.
So another question that we have is, these are all from our good friend Kumail, who couldn't be here. He loves watching the shows. So what was performing in West End like?
What was performing in the West End like? To me, there's being in live theater, being on stage and performing in the West End. It's major. It's like the equivalent of being on Broadway. It's just London's version of Broadway, basically. All the very same shows that happen in New York tend to come to London, and being able to work in the West End is, it's like a privilege. It's a rite of passage in some ways, that you kind of get a chance to stand on that West End stage in front of 1,200 people, depending on the size of the theater. Sometimes it's a 500-seat theater if you're doing a play, or a smaller theater, or a bigger theater. It doesn't really matter, whether it's the London Palladium or the Dominion or any of those places. There's that. It's incredible to stand on a stage and perform a show that people are watching, and you get that instant gratification and acknowledgement, whether it's a musical comedy or if it's a dramatic play. You're always going to feel what people feel. Their expressions are shown and displayed, and you get the applause, or you get the whoops and the cheers. You always feel like that energy is also feeding you. And some people ask, it's very difficult is it difficult to do a show? Most shows perform 8 times a week. You get 2 matinees, and the rest are evening performances throughout the week. And, how hard is it doing the same show over and over and over again, for a year's contract or whatever? And to me, it's the job. It comes with the territory. But for me, what has always gotten me through something like that is there are days where you don't feel it. You don't feel, you think, I've got to do a show tonight. I'm not feeling that great. But somehow something happens the minute you walk through that stage door, sign your name in, go to your dressing room, get yourself ready. You start to hear the orchestra warm up, or you see your colleagues, down the corridor or something, and you start to realize that you get to the side of the stage and you can hear the people coming into the theater. You hear the rumble and the mumbling, and it's all of that, the excitement that these people are so geared up for, because you're about to step on a stage and take them on a journey. And you have to remember that you are doing that same show every night, but someone different is watching it every night. So you have to know that you are performing, and anything can happen. And that's the joy of live theater, is that you set the intention that you're going to do what's required of you and the show, but anything could happen. Like I said earlier, you could slip and fall, or you could, someone might say something and throw you off, or you might lose a line or drop a line or something. And, and in those experiences, that audience gets to experience that, and they're always going to be with you. No one's ever going to be upset. And believe me, because it's happened to me. And I know, that an audience is happy to feel like they've gotten something special that no one else had. We were there the night that so-and-so did this. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, no, it's all about the experience.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the coolest things about theater, is no one show is exactly the same, whether it's the crowd's energy, the performance, everything is just a little bit different. Yeah, absolutely. So before I ask his next question, you grew up in Ohio? Is that right?
I did indeed. Yes, Canton, Ohio.
So what was the transition like? I mean, obviously you've been, all around the world at this point.
And
so
I.
How did you go from Ohio to where you are now?
So the journey in a nutshell went as this. I grew up in Ohio. I was working in the theater and working with the ballet company there in Canton, and decided at some point I need to get out of this, because back and forth I'd been going to New York City when I was with the ballet company, taking classes at the School of American Ballet, New York City Ballet, and things like that, and Alvin Ailey. And I decided at some point I'm going to have to move. But I went from Ohio to another ballet company in Minnesota. From Minnesota, I moved to New York City, lived my life in New York City, and thought this is where I need to be. Then I got a job offer to do Cats the Musical, which is a show on Broadway that I always wanted to do, but Germany called me first. So I went to do Cats in Germany, and I stayed in Germany for 3 years, roughly, doing the show. At that point, I got my recording contract with Polydor Records, and was there for that period, and decided from that I wanted to move to London. And so from there, I moved to London, started my whole professional journey working in London. And from there, I flitted back and forth between New York, London, Italy, and just started working outside of that. And that's kind of how my journey began, and then ended up at some point. So I lived in London for nearly 30 years. And that was home for me. And I only just left London in 2014 to come back to the States to start over, so to speak.
That's so cool.
But not really. But that's kind of that was literally my journey in a nutshell.
I didn't realize you were in London for so long. Like, I knew you had been abroad for a long time, but I didn't obviously doing a little bit of research before the show, but I didn't realize that you'd been in London for 30 years. What was London like? How did you like it?
I absolutely, to this very day, I adore London. I absolutely adore it. I've got many friends there, work colleagues and things like that. And also because when I moved back to the States, I was flying back to London to do a children's animation called Go Jetters, which is a sort of a preschool. And I played this funky disco unicorn, which is crazy in itself. Called Ubercorn. He's really cool. Awesome. But I flew back like 12 times in that first year of moving back, because I was still working, and I still do. I fly back and forth, and London is one of those places that it's like going back. I go back to do a job, but it's also like going back home to me. And it has been a very long time living there that is, half my life. Nearly, and I absolutely, I love it. It's an amazing city. I think there's a great opportunity. There's wonderful things coming out of the UK, and also it's so close to the rest of Europe. And it was an opportunity to explore the world. Once you get on that side of the Atlantic, if you have the opportunity, by all means, hop on a train or a plane and go see some of these other places in Europe. It's not often people have that luxury.
Absolutely.
What
So
was an unexpected place, if I may ask, that the stage took you to, like to actually perform in a place that you never thought you'd
I want to add on to
your
that
job would take you
too.
there?
Okay.
So to add on to that, what was also your favorite place to perform? So those two.
Oh, wow. One of my favorites was Italy. And I was doing a show there, and I toured in a show for a very long time, but I was able to see so much of that country. And also, it was a show that was a musical, but it was all done in Italian. And I was the only American in the show. Everyone else was Italian. So I had to learn the show phonetically. And thank God it's a show that I was familiar with because I'd done it in English many times before as well. And the same with Germany. When I did Cats in Germany for that time, I had to learn that show phonetically. And then eventually did the show in London. So it was interesting. But I loved performing in Italy. It's really hard because every place that I performed offered me something different. Do you know what I mean? And so it's really hard. I mean, I loved Italy, one, because I love the food. The people are fantastic. But Australia, I went to Australia to work, and that was amazing. So it's really hard for me to narrow it down as to what the best place was. I'm just so grateful for all these opportunities that have come my way, that my work has allowed me to go to these places. And I think that's been very fortunate, because there are times where I just would never have been able to experience that and to experience other cultures and have a great appreciation. There's still lots of places I'd love to still go. And hopefully I will do, whether that's doing a stage show or whether that's, going away to film or whatever, but just to experience, and I was in Bulgaria not about 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago, filming a TV show. And that was very interesting to me in Sofia, Bulgaria. And, it was a different way of living, and it was all of these things, but also getting used to a different culture. So like I said, I think when you go to do a job, it's a way of being able to experience life in a different way, so I welcome that.
So then what would be the most surprising or unexpected place that you ended up traveling to?
The most unexpected place. Australia was probably the most unexpected place because it's so far away. But also I'm very excited to go. So, and also because I got to go there, and my husband is Australian. So I got to go to Australia before I could go with them. So their family was there and everything. So that was great. And that was it was unexpected, but it was a little bittersweet. They eventually came out for a couple of weeks while I was there, but it was interesting to kind of go and see his home country without being there with them to begin with. So that was unexpected, but also very rewarding.
So what was the future like? I mean, Carl lives the future every day, but
All right. It's
Yeah,
the
the weather's
craziest
a big
thing, isn't
right
it? Because
future, sorry.
I think it's the craziest thing because the one thing about having moved back to America is that we're closer to family there. It's now only 15 hours flight versus the 22-hour flight or whatever it was before when we were living in London. But the whole thing of thinking that they're literally almost 24 hours ahead of us, in some ways. And it's crazy because every time I think it's Friday, I must call them. And they're like, no, it's Saturday there now. So it's crazy, but so far ahead,
Yep.
It is living the future. So we were fortunate to be there. We left here in November this year and spent time to go and visit family during the pandemic because it was a good opportunity, and we were fortunate enough to kind of get out of the mayhem for a little bit.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Did anyone else want to ask a question? I know I've kind of been talking a lot.
I've got a question that's kind of a side tangent before we get into like all the Death Stranding stuff and all that.
Yeah, we haven't talked about it yet.
Yeah, trust me, there's going to be a lot of Death Stranding discussion coming up.
I really wanted to get into you and the amazing things you've done outside of Death Stranding before we got there.
Yeah. So speaking of all the amazing things you've done outside of Death Stranding, this is something I didn't realize until I just looked it up. What was it like working on Fallout 76?
Oh man, yeah, it was cool for me. Working on jobs it's exactly that. It's a job. I love doing what I do, and every job offers something different. And I think in Fallout, there was probably 3 different roles I think I was working on in that particular production. And sometimes I'm doing bigger roles, sometimes I'm doing small roles, and for me, I'm just that working actor. I love doing everything. If I'm available and there's something, I'm happy to pop in and do it. And it was cool. I mean, working with the team was great. I didn't spend it wasn't nearly the amount of time I spent working, obviously, on something like Death Stranding or whatever. But it was great because I went back several times and worked with them, and it was fun. It was just really cool. And some of the character stuff that I had to do was really crazy and out there. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was brilliant.
Cool. I just wanted to ask that question because I feel like I'm the only person in the whole world who actually likes that game and is
Hey, that's not true.
publicly
No.
open about it. I feel like most people are ashamed of it for some reason.
I fought for that game on a
It's
show
good
recently.
game. It's a good game. It's a lot of fun. Go play Fallout
It's
76
not
if
the
you haven't.
prettiest game, I'll admit that, but it's fun to play.
True.
And I haven't played it. No.
Anyone else have any questions as far as just general stuff that you wanted to ask?
I
Before
did. So growing up like in high school, so I was a band kid, so I understand like the whole arts type of thing, and I was in the pit during the musicals, so like theater is very special to me and whatnot. I was just curious, like, what was your favorite part of the theater experience? Like, was it the singing? Was it the dancing? Was it the rehearsals? Like, what was your favorite part of all of that?
Oh, look, once again, to me, it's the whole part of being, if there's anything I can say that's a favorite part of being in the theater or working in it, is just, it's everything about it. It's about everything it stands for, everything that it encompasses. And, I do love the rehearsal process. I love, if I'm working on a musical, I love that 6-week process of getting a show up and running, because it's a process. You're seeing everybody every day. You're having fun. You're discovering new things. You're working on a scene and you're breaking it down and you're putting it together, trying to see what works for you, especially if it's a remounting of a show. Like sometimes they do a lot of shows that come from New York that they bring to London. So the show has already been tried and tested. So there's a template to follow. And sometimes that can be difficult because you're kind of kept within a margin because that's how the show works. So how much freedom you have as an actor doesn't always get to stretch you. But a lot of times you do also get some freedom. But I love a rehearsal process. I love finding the character. I love digging deep. I love breaking it down. And I love an opening night because there's nothing ever quite like it. You will never find the nerves on any other night than you do like on an opening night because everybody's coming to see it. You've got your red carpet out there and all you can think about is not screwing anything up. I just need to go out, do a great job. And it's the excitement of the party afterwards, getting the reviews, and hopefully they're all going to be great. And, and it's everything that 6 week that you've worked for finally starts on that night, and then from there on out, it's just a journey. So I think the rehearsal process and the opening night is probably one of my favorite things about theater.
Great.
That actually leads me into a question. When you are reading for a character, and you get the script or the draft, like, do you read just your character? Do you read the whole thing? I know that people like to work in different ways depending on what they're doing.
I will, if I've been given an entire script and I know that this is a job I'm going to do, and I know that my role is in this script, I have to read the entire script because you need to know what this story does, where it goes, and what happens. Now, all you need to do is get that into you, and I think that's fine. You just need to know what the story is about. In terms of, working about your lines, I think it's one thing is learning the lines, but not over rehearsing your lines to the point where you don't have any other way to say the lines. Because when it gets to the point of working opposite another person, you want to be able to be flexible. You don't want to be locked into a specific way of saying the line because that's how you rehearsed it. You want to be able to know that if they throw a cue at you, and realistically, if someone says a line to you one way, your reaction, giving it back to them, whatever the line is going to be different depending on how it was thrown at you. If they deliver the line to you in an angry and accusing way, you can either return the line in an angry and accusing way or be offended by it. Do you know what I mean? So it just really depends. You can't lock yourself in. As the actor, you have to stay open, So I will always read. I won't just open a script and just read my lines. I have to read the entire script. If I've only been given sides that just have my stuff, I still read the entire scene that I've been given, before I start to work on it.
I have a theater-related question.
Go for it.
You've expressed how difficult it is to get into a show that's been sort of more or less set in stone. How is that versus workshopping a show, being part of the workshop process in the very origin, in the very beginnings of a show? What is that like versus that the opposite?
Well, for starters, I think if you're working on a show that has never been done before, has never been mounted, has never been performed anywhere else, it's an original show and you've been cast, and that rehearsal process does become a sort of workshop scenario because you are indeed actually creating a character. You are creating something that will inevitably be the template for anyone else who does this show after you. You see what I mean? So you have that luxury, and it's not everyone gets that. Not everyone gets the luxury of being in an original show, and by original show, I mean original as in never been done. I've been a part of original productions that have been from New York to London, and creating and recreating the role, if that makes sense. So I think what you don't have and you're not restricted to when you're doing an original show is that let's see what you come up with. Let's see how you interpret this. Let you create your journey for this versus a show that you are recreating. It already has, you already know at this point you have to cross onto, there's numbers across the stage. And on this line, you step to number 2. You back up on this line when you say going out the door. You back up 3 paces and turn and walk. So it's already mapped out so that if you see the London production versus the New York production and you put them on top of each other, you will see that everybody moves at exactly the same time on the exact same word and the exact same note that they're singing. And it literally is that. Whereas, when you get the opportunity to do a show that's never been done before, you create that. And therefore the person, if the show goes on to perform in another country with another company, they're going to map what you've done. Now, that doesn't always happen because sometimes there will be maybe say a smaller production company or a smaller theater that wants to do Hamilton. Say they want to do Hamilton, but they bought the rights to Hamilton, but only the rights to do it. So they will recreate their own version of the choreography, their own version of the staging, the set. You know what I mean? Okay. So that's all. And so therefore, those people get a chance to do things like that, and That does happen too. But if you're remounting an original production from Broadway, 9 times out of 10, that production, if it's going to another big area like the West End of London, it's going to be the exact same replica.
Gotcha.
That's really cool.
Very cool.
And then, Carl, did you have any questions that you wanted to throw out there?
Yeah, sort of got like a two-pronged question here. Just sort of
A 3-pronged one. Oh my God.
yeah, so just sort of first part of it would be sort of like a dream project like you'd like to work on, just like not something that not necessarily exists, like something you'd really like to work on, whether it be theater, film, voiceover, just sort of a dream that you like to work on. And second part is if there's sort of any existing role that exists in any part of media at the moment that you'd like to sort of work on. Like, I don't know if you wanted to be sort of like the next Batman, or if you wanted to sort of like pivot to a different character and voiceover, just sort of, if there's any projects out there right now that you'd like to sort of sink your teeth into?
I think what was the first part of the question again was
Yeah, so sort of just like a project that not necessarily exists now that you'd really like to do.
Yeah. There is a few things out there that I'm kind of just keeping a little close to my chest in that respect. Only because I'm just kind of not putting anything out there in the ether publicly about it. But I think that there's quite a few things that I'd like to do. I mean, in TV and film and in theater, I'd love to do a play on Broadway. I'd love to get myself back into the theater, not necessarily doing a musical unless it was something that really, really was suited to me. But also to do a play, maybe to do a revival of a classic, Offenses, an August Wilson play or something like that, which would be really cool. Or indeed back to the West End of London. But yeah, I would love to do something like that. I think also, I have a show that I've been working on from as a workshop show that I've written that I was doing a few readings with before I left London. And I'm now kind of coming back to that and looking at the script and rejigging a few things about that, and maybe hopefully do a workshop and transfer to the screenplay and try and see how that fares. Yeah, I mean, as far as roles, I'd love to be able to sort of go back and be, to hit into a Marvel movie, and find something in that's a really cool character. I love playing regal characters. I love the idea of being a king. I love the idea of sitting on a throne and, my crown slightly cocked to one side and, an arched eyebrow. And I would love someone to come up with that one. So I'm putting that out there. But yeah, I mean, there's a multitude of things, and things are always happening. But a lot of times I think I like to just leave myself open to the possibilities of what can be. I'd like to see people take more risks and more chances, and more opportunities given. Representation clearly matters. And I think there's a lot of room for a lot of different roles to be brought to the forefront. Certainly in the LGBTQ realm of things there, and I don't like people being limited. I don't like people being pigeonholed in a way, because to me, an actor is an actor. And I think there are certain things that we can bring to roles. And I think there are certain things that stories need to be told in a certain way. But, I think in as far as all that goes, I think we're heading in the right direction. Times are changing. But
maybe
yeah,
you can
so nothing.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go on.
Maybe you can get a Norman Reedus to think outside the box and put on a Walking Dead staged production where you can be King Ezekiel. That's very regal.
There we go.
There you go. Norman,
I'm
if
not-
you're listening.
I'm not sure how they do tigers. I'm just throwing that out there.
Have you ever seen The Lion King?
Lion King, yeah.
That's
they did a
true.
whole-
That's true. That's true.
You got to use your imagination in theater, man, a lot. Yeah, almost as much as motion capture.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, motion
know.
capture stages are really interesting because it's a lot of equipment on you, which, for some people could totally rip them out of it. And there's the stuff that you're supposed to be interacting with, but it's never dressed in any way. So it's always interesting to see the behind the scenes stuff of motion capture, whether it's for a movie or for a video game.
Believe me.
Yeah, you would know.
Yeah,
you would know.
100%. Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. It's a challenge. It's definitely a challenge.
And then, did we answer the second part of the question, Carl?
Yeah. No, that was an awesome answer. Thank you so very much.
Of course.
To
I'm just
play off
checking.
of
Am I
that.
delayed again?
A little
A
bit,
little
yeah.
bit,
Is
yeah.
my video delayed? Okay. Do I need to stop it and start it again?
Yeah, I would just shut off the camera, turn it back on.
How's that?
Perfect.
Great. Yeah.
Hey, here we go. Yeah, just give me a signal. Let me know. Give me a little wave if it starts,
Okay.
and I'll just automatically do it.
Okay. So as far as the things that we were just talking about, as far as like a property or something you'd like to be a part of, do you have like a book or something that you would love to see turned into a movie or a stage production or any form of medium outside of the written page?
At the moment, there's a few things that I've thought about. Also, like I said, there's one. I've written this a script at the moment. A lot of it has to do with my own personal life and where I've come from and things that have happened to me recently in terms of rediscovering my birth family, my mother, because I was adopted when I was 4, and that's only just surfaced back in 2015. And the discovery of having 2 brothers who, when I started my theater career, for all intents and purposes, actually were building the sets on the very show that I was working on, and had no idea that they were my brothers. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Believe it or not, I know.
What?
And that and enough should tell you what the journey has become, and to therefore subsequently find out all the information of our going to school and crossing paths, going to the same high school and elementary school and not ever knowing, living in the same neighborhood. Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. I was going to say my wife just found out that she has 2 sisters and a brother that she never knew about, and she's about to turn 34. So
wow. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. It is life-changing in a way, but because you live your entire life without that, and all of a sudden that becomes a part of your life, and you try to figure out, how does this now fit in, because I carry on with my life, but there's now what was once Pandora's box to me, and wondering, has now been opened. And once that's open, that's it. You can't just put it back. You now have to find a way to see how that fits into your life, or even if indeed you want it to fit into your life for some people.
Yeah.
So it's a very strange juxtaposition, but it's for me, fortunately, it's been a very welcoming and rewarding one. But there's doing a film about someone like, say, Frederick Douglass, who was a slave abolitionist, would be a very interesting story for me to be able to tell. I love the idea of his history and everything behind that. They're historical figures, some Black historical figures But also, I think the idea of doing something. I love the futuristic. I love that sort of out of the ordinary sci-fi kind of thing as well, and maybe just find something that is new and different. I love the idea of creating a role because, like I said, it's very rare that we as actors get a chance to really create something and to create something in a way that, you know, leaves a mark on people. And that, for me, probably is a good thing for me to connect with something like Death Stranding and playing this particular character, you know. And that was great because it was unlike anything I had expected from it.
Yeah, you've mentioned in interviews and stuff what it was like working with Hideo Kojima, but yeah, I mean, like, what was that experience? How crazy is that? And I was just going to ask, was most of what was translated to you, was it from a translator? Would he say something and then a translator would let you know what the difference was, or?
Yes. So there was a fantastic translator that was word for word and had a very great way of expressing and getting the message across. What was interesting about it was that I would find myself really focusing on Kojima whilst hearing the translation. Do you see what I mean? So it's like I'm listening. Well, because I can look at him and physically see the emotion coming from him or his eyes and his delivery. And even though he's saying it to the translator and then back, somehow I found a way to watch him and listen whilst hearing it from, you know, the translator. And then I would obviously converse with them as well when I need to say something. But it was something that you would imagine to be a difficult situation, but it was the easiest. You know, he was very very giving, very letting you do your thing, not restricting you. And it was just, the communication was always there. I never once felt like I wasn't being heard, or the questions that I had didn't matter, or anything like that. I could not have had an experience any better than what I did working with him and the team. It was an incredible experience. And if I had the chance to do it all over again, I absolutely would. Absolutely would.
We were talking about motion capture studios and stuff earlier, and that game has a very interesting premise because it kind of collided with real world events as time went on, and the game is very much about isolation and connection through technology, which is what we were talking about earlier. Sure. When you were filming those scenes, how many of those scenes were actually with other actors, or was a lot of it by yourself?
All of my stuff was with the other actors. All my stuff with Mads, and my stuff with Norman. The majority of all the big stuff was with them. And like anything, there might be a couple of smaller things that might not have been with them, but you still have to do the performance capture and things like that or whatever. But for the most part, everything was pretty much with them. And it was great because we're just actors in a room dressed in mocap suits, with headgear and things on, and just getting on with it, doing what we do and forgetting about the fact that you have this stuff on, but, staying in the moment, doing exactly what you would do as if you were on set doing a film, So it was an incredible experience and also very incredibly challenging. Very, very challenging. And to some degree, I find more challenging than filming.
Awesome. Okay, so I guess now that we've opened Pandora's box, let's go ahead and get into some of the community questions around Death Stranding. Obviously, some of these questions go into things that you probably either know nothing about or can't talk about. So
Sure.
for those questions, we just want to make sure we get them out there for the community, let them know that they are being heard. But obviously, you are under no obligation to answer anything about them.
Right.
So who wants to start?
I
Let's
actually
go.
want to go first with my own personal question before I get into the community ones. Now that we are talking about Death Stranding, I'm just curious, what was your thought process when you read the script or were pitched the idea of Death Stranding? Did you understand anything that was happening, or was it kind of a long process of figuring out what the hell was going on in that game?
Well, firstly, I was never given a full script of the story. I think the script would probably be the size of War and Peace if it was all down on paper, because it's huge. It's huge. But I was given the stuff the scenes that I was a part of, and anything that I wasn't given, I was, the messages and the information was given to me as we worked. So the story was very complicated, as most people know. It's a very complicated story to follow in some ways. I think when you know it, you get a grasp on it, you kind of understand what's happening. But at first glance, yes, it's very difficult to kind of understand certain aspects of it. But they were very clear and very precise about the explanation of it. So I was given information about things as we went on, and anything that I wasn't sure about, I always felt free and comfortable enough to ask the question. And of course, whenever there was a question asked, there was an answer given. So I never felt there was, nothing was left out, for you to figure out for yourself. There was always an answer. There was, there's a reason for everything that he does, is what I have discovered. For him to put whatever is in his mind onto paper, there's a story or a reason behind every line or every intention of the character or its journey or its process or whatever. It's all thought out. I don't think anything has ever been thrown at the wall to see what sticks in any capacity. I think there is, anybody who is familiar with his work will know that it's a very intellectual mind. Incredible.
I would love to piggyback off of your question, Gage, and just right there, familiarity with Kojima. How familiar were you with Kojima's work before, during, like when you heard about Death Stranding and all of that?
Right. So here's the deal, right? So as a VO, as an actor in general, I love video games. I don't play video games very often. And certainly not in the realm in which I work. I do more work on them than I do in terms of playing. And during this process, I've learned a lot more. Times have changed since, Donkey Kong on PlayStation for me. It's not the same. And all the story-based games that are out there, the emotion, the motion capture, the pure technology of it in itself has changed dramatically. So when I got the job, I wasn't told off the bat who or what the project was. I remember getting the self-tape from an agent saying, can you put yourself on tape for this? And at that time, the character name was not given. It was just considered Commander. And it was a very, general scene. It had some really cool stuff that I kind of thought, oh yeah, this is cool. But nothing that gave the story away. I think it was more about how you get a grasp of this type of character, more than anything. But when I found out that it was Kojima, I was kind of like, this name sounds familiar, but I'm not sure. And I wasn't, and it didn't dawn on me until I got everything in place before I started to go and film and did my research and thought, oh my God, so now I can put it together. Now I know. And I'm really glad that I did not know to the extent of his legacy, so to speak, before working with him. I think I still would have been fine because I've worked with a lot of big people in the past. And that's never been an issue. But I think for me, in some respects, it was wonderful to to not have that information, because I went into work daily to do my job, and I wasn't going in a condition of nervousness or fandom in a way that it distracted me from doing what I needed to do. What I did was go into work and try to do the best possible job for my director, and to relay the lines and the story and get the intention and the integrity of the piece that this person wanted. That was my job. And for that, I think even after realizing who he was, made it all the more special to me, because the relationship had been established in a way from my end that it's nice to know I am working with this incredible person, who to the rest of the world is like a god, and here I am working with him one-on-one, and it's like he is the nicest giving person, and you see him and he just makes me smile when I look at him, because I don't know, there's just something about him. I think he's the bomb. He really, really is. Cool guy. And you think about the stories that he's done, when you think about the history of the work that he's done, and even with those things like Metal Gear and stuff, you think this is all in your mind. These are all the things that you've come up with and created and bringing to the masses to get locked in and to connect to. And, people have lost their minds over his stuff. Do you know what I mean? So it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But yeah, it was incredible. So I'm kind of glad that that's how my relationship with him began, and he's definitely king.
I think you're one of the best people to actually work with him, because he is such a person of the arts. He loves every aspect of art, whether it's a stage play, music, movie. And so, yeah, you having like an aspect of all of those under your belt is just, I mean, that must have been just a joy for him. Did you ever get to talk outside of work with him? Like just about general things?
Well, pretty much not. I mean, he was always incredibly busy. Sure. So when my work day was done, it was kind of done, because there were things to get on with. But, I never felt like if I wanted to find the time, during the lunch break, we would always have, a moment, but it was never, let's sit down and have coffee and have a real chat kind of situation. But I know that even, when we saw each other at the Game Awards, it's always, greeted with a hug. And it's a moment where, because there is the language barrier, I think you can only say so much in such a short space of time, right. But he's always got his people with him who are always ready there to relay a message or let you know how happy he is with you, or sends his regards or whatever, and sometimes that's all you need. Absolutely. That's all you need. You're on the same page, so it's good. That's all good. Awesome.
All right, let's go ahead and get into these community questions. And then any other questions we have that aren't answered by these, we'll go ahead and get those asked.
Cool.
So let's go ahead and start with Carl.
Sure thing. So this one's from an awesome member of the community called Reese Boy. He says, hands down my favorite performance in the game was your role. It seemed like you gave everything and it showed. What was it like doing performance capture with Kojima, and what were the biggest challenges while performing for Death Stranding?
Mm-hmm. So the biggest challenges for performing, just in general, certainly just with Death Stranding and doing the motion capture, like I've said in the past, is that one of the things is that it's very hard when you're put in certain situations. Unlike filming TV and film, you don't have a lot of stuff around you. You just don't. You're there in a suit. You have a few pieces that maybe represent a desk, or it might represent a chair, or it might represent a motorcycle, but you don't have the actual things. So this is where, as the actor, your imagination is an incredibly, incredibly important tool to bring to the forefront, because you need to imagine everything that is around you, even if you don't see it. Whereas on TV and film, you get those things. If it needs to snow, they'll give you a snowstorm. Do you know what I mean? And all of that. But you don't have that luxury when you're working mocap. And as the artist, you do have to dig that extra few feet deep to make that vision come to life. And it's the same for us, even if you're just in the booth. You don't have the luxury of having things around you. It's very hard for voice artists to recreate those things, but you have to find a way, because it's only your voice that we can rely on. We have to put everything else around it, but we need to be able to believe a lot of things. And so it was very challenging, and in terms of, and thank you very much for the compliment. I appreciate it, and it was hard. It was very challenging for me, but I enjoyed every aspect of it. Did that answer the questions?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you very much.
Sure.
And then, McKenna, this is a little bit different of a community question, but go ahead and ask this one.
This one comes from Hoodie at the Penny Marvels, and he asks, "How are you?"
How am I? Thank you for asking. I am very well, thank you. I'm good. Life is good. I'm getting through the pandemic. I've been vaxxed, so I feel good. The city's open. California's open fully, and we're just getting on with stuff. And hopefully, we are still headed in the right direction. But yeah, I'm good. Thank you, and I hope you're well too.
All right, Gage, let's go ahead and do your community question.
Can we get you to redo your webcam one more time for me, please? Awesome.
Hey.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay.
Yeah.
The first one, hopefully I pronounce this individual's last name properly. It's Luis Guimarães, I believe. I hope that's close enough. Sorry if I got it wrong. Let's see. So his question is, if you had a character, let's see. The way it's worded is a strange question. Okay. Is there a character who inspired your performance as Die Hard Man, or were you just following your own personal inspirations and motivations for that character?
Yeah, so I didn't base him on anyone in particular. I think for all purposes that I just read what he was meant to be, also based on what the original audition was that I'd done, knowing that I was in the right ballpark for what Kojima wanted. And I think I just needed a few things to know about myself and him, and having the gravitas, the weight, and the experience, and all of that information coupled with who he was in the context of the piece. The leader of Bridges, commander, the right hand to the president. All of those things to me already just told me a wealth of things about him. All I needed to do was give this character a voice, and a presence. And knowing where the story would go, I think I chose to certainly play him in a way that people were just, you would see him in one respect, because he's got probably second to the biggest lines, if not the biggest lines in the whole show. In the whole show. I'm so theatrical. In the whole game. But he's full of knowledge and full of information, and he's constantly spewing to the point where I know that people were like, "Oh my God, leave me alone." You hear the codec, and he's like, "Here he comes again. This is it," But it was finding a way to let that character simmer all the way through until there was a moment for you to see that this person is human. He is human, because he could be mistaken as a bad guy, not on the up and up or whatever, or he's just kind of there being annoying, giving you all these missions and this, that, and the other. And at the end of the day, I think the choice of playing him the way that I did, he was very emotionless in a lot of ways, because I think you don't find people in those positions to be full of emotion in any way, shape, or form when it comes to with a military background who is really just about getting the job done. Quite frankly, they're not there to be friends. They're not there to cuddle you. They're not there to hold your hand. They're there to tell you what to do, and your job is to follow the order. So keeping it in line with that, and then to finally get that chance to show the humanity in him was such a big reveal. But you have to go through a long period before getting to this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully the payoff is worth it.
I actually have a weird question, just really fast. Did you know he was going to have the mask? Like, did you know what he was going to look like before you started acting the role?
Yeah. I knew what was entailed and what was going to be, and also when it was no longer going to be that. So yeah, that information was given. Yeah.
Awesome. Just before we get to another community question, I just want to say that final scene that you have with Sam's character, or Norman's character, Sam, that is still to this day one of the greatest performances I've ever seen in a video game. It was phenomenal.
Oh, mate, thank you so much. I never expected that. That day. I will never forget that day of doing that. It will forever stay with me because it was such an emotional day. But it was, and to leave it behind was sort of like, I have no idea how that is going to be brought to the screen. No idea, because of how we did it. You're there in motion capture and suits and everything, and I had no idea what the turnout of that would be. And I couldn't, when I did see it, I was kind of floored by it myself, only because I felt like my job was done, but also that the people who were creating it and putting it together, all the technician, all of the artists, everything that went behind it, I felt like they lived up to everything that was done in terms of the performance, as well as putting together their whole vision, and that they did it justice. I think they really did do it justice. The graphics were incredible, so I felt good about that.
Yeah, I definitely feel like Death Stranding and Last of Us Part 2 are two of the most incredible games because of how much range and emotion and just visual imagery there is between scenes. And I think, The Last of Us is technically amazing, and all of the technology that goes into that is amazing. But one of the things that's really interesting about Death Stranding is how much dressing there is in any given scene. There's so many messages and context built into that imagery that's not just the regular environment or not just the characters. Like you said, Kojima's very deliberate. So everything he puts into a scene has a meaning, has a place, and a purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you get that even from just the dialogue of the characters and the whole story. There is, like I said, there's a reason behind everything. I don't think he does anything just to fill a space, It's
awesome.
Absolutely. All right. Anybody else want to do another community question before I do mine? Go for it, Al.
This one comes in from Tasaj J-Docs. Probably butchered that. Did you ever have any correspondence with Akio Otsuka about the character of Die Hard Man? Were there any notable similarities or differences between your approaches to the role? Thanks.
I didn't have any contact at all. I remember watching a panel when they had been revealed, and they were all on the Japanese voice artists were on stage, and I know that they are well respected within the industry and stuff there, and they've obviously worked with Kojima before, and I can imagine, and I haven't seen or heard his full interpretation of it, because there's a few people that have done it, certainly in other languages and stuff as well, which I always find fascinating, and I think it's incredible that we're able to do that, those translations and things. But I didn't have any contact or any connection in terms of our versions of the character or anything like that. But I know that he's a fantastic actor and artist and well respected.
It's awesome.
Thank you. Great. I have one more.
Okay.
Go for it.
From our very own Matt Ferguson at Fergie21.
Also from Ohio.
His question.
Oh,
There you go. He's asking, was cell phone service any better once I fully restored the chiral network? That's Matt.
once we're all back online, everything was good. It was all good.
Thank you.
And since we're on the Matt Ferguson train, he also asks, "Hey, what's up with this Death Stranding director's cut?"
What's up with it? I have no idea. I have no. It's been released or it's coming.
Coming
so
soon.
it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, coming soon. Yeah, all I can say is watch this space. I have no other information. I have nothing. I just know that it's coming, and I'm in the same boat with everybody else. So we can all look forward to seeing what's put out there, and I'm sure it'll be worth the wait for those people who are going to be able to access it. So
I bet.
There's a comment.
Thank you for endorsing our channel as the space people need to watch for Death Stranding.
So a reply to this from Ellie Zelda's dada. He says, "I just got to know, with Kojima Unleashed, what didn't he put in there and why?" Which isn't necessarily a question for you, but it's a pretty funny question as a whole. Like, what didn't go in that game?
Right. Yeah, everything but the kitchen sink. But hey, once again, I have no idea. No idea. It's a lot of information. A lot of information.
All right, final community question.
All right. So this one comes from Britton Shroom on Twitter. So it's kind of a theoretical thing because he just mentioned Death Stranding 2. So obviously, if there is a sequel in the works, obviously you can't talk about it. Is there a sequel in the works? So if there was a sequel, and you were able to further expand upon Die Hard Man, where would you like to see that character go? And the second kind of piggybacking off of that is, are you interested in doing more video games after Death Stranding?
The second part of that question I will answer now is that yes, I am interested, and yes, I am currently working on a few projects as we speak. And going back to the question, what was the first part?
Just theoretically, if there was a sequel, where would you want to see your character go?
Yeah. Listen, if there was a sequel, I mean, I'd love the backstory of him to be explored, with him and Cliff, in terms of, we talked about that. You kind of got the flashbacks, but then to see the journey that was taken, maybe leading up to that, but also then where he goes after what has happened at the end of the story. What does happen to him, so yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that I would love to see happen, but I think that exploration is something that is so vast in the realms of, certainly in the Kojima world. It could be anything. It could be anything. Who knows? Who knows?
All right. Did anyone else have any questions before I do the final rapid fire questions?
I'm all good.
Anybody want to ask anything about Death Stranding or anything else?
I got
Carl?
plenty of Death Stranding questions. I don't want to pry too much because I obviously don't want to get too much into the NDAs and stuff like that. So
Right. Well, so if you ask, if I can tell you, I will tell you, and if I can't, I can't.
So Death Stranding 2. No, honestly, I think we've pretty much covered all of my Death Stranding questions. So thank you for answering them.
McKenna?
I think I'm all good for now.
All right, Carl?
Yeah, so not a Death Stranding question. So yeah, I was just talking about sort of your music career and everything. What sort of are your favorite artists? Sort of any influences and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I have grown up with I love R&B. I love the 70s. I love the 60s. Definitely my Motown, Four Tops, my Marvin Gaye, my Stevie Wonder, all the early years of Temptations. Anything in that realm is right up my street. It's interesting because I can go from there are bits of the 80s, but the 70s, that whole 70s vibe and the early 90s was my jam, and I really like what's going on at the moment musically. There's a lot of things happening, a lot of fusion. I love Dua Lipa at the moment. Really, really into that. So it's interesting because my sort of experience in the music industry, although it was a passing time, I still feel like there are elements of music, and I have such an eclectic collection of music that I like. So I'm not pigeonholed into just one style. I love country, I love contemporary, I love pop, I love R&B. It just really depends. Sometimes certain songs just hit me, and I'm like, I am into this song. I don't know what it is. But I think having a chance to experience that side of the music industry and doing dance music, I've always wanted to go back, but to be able to go back doing the type of things that, I love singing. I love ballads. I love dance music. I kind of enjoy that vibe, but I'm a ballad boy. I'm a bit of a crooner in that respect and stuff. So I love things like that. I love jazz. Yeah. So it just it really depends. Depends on what time of the day it is, what I'm feeling. But yeah, bit of Jay-Z, bit of Beyonce. I'm good.
It's perfect. Thank you.
And Al, did you have any final questions?
I'm good. I think I'm good.
Okay. So one last quick question from Kumail, Kumail H on Twitter. Who inspired you into acting? Like, who was your role model growing up? Like, what made you want to do what you're doing?
I suppose growing up, in some respects, there are certain older actors. Ossie Davis, I don't know if you're familiar with him, and he was married to a brilliant actress, Ruby Dee, and Sidney Poitier, some of the old school actors that I really, really kind of looked at and saw as representation. But then as I got into it more, through people like Denzel Washington and Morgan Freeman's, all of these people that I've kind of had a very profound effect on me, just visually and voice and their delivery, but also helping me find my own voice. Because once I realized you can have a passion and a joy for doing what you do, and you have a respect for so many different actors or people in the business, you also see how individual they are. Do you know what I mean? And what it meant to me was that, so you don't I aspire to be like these people, but not to be these people, because these people have already filled that slot. Why do I want to be like Denzel Washington when you've already got Denzel Washington? Do you know what I mean? So I find that when I've discovered what my voice is and who I am, that's where the power lies. You know, the power doesn't lie with me trying to be somebody else. And I think hence that's an interesting thing about Death Stranding and playing Die Hardman is that's me. That was the joy of creating a character that had never been done before. This is a new story, you know, and for me to be given the opportunity to become a Kojima part of that legacy, part of that, those, you know, and I feel that he will become one of those iconic characters just simply by his visual look. Do you know what I mean? And so it's amazing. And because it's part of such an interesting story, creating that character allowed me to be able to give who I am to this character. And so for that, I thank all those people who who've come before me and allowed me to understand that you are an individual. And once you realize that the only thing that you can be that no one else can be is you. And when you realize that, that's the thing that will keep you separate from everybody else. And it's not just me, but it's every actor, everyone out there, when they understand that that is their calling card, that we've already got these other people, what we want to see. And it may take people time to find that, to find you, to see you and accept you, but you have to stay with it. You don't want to be changing who you are constantly. You want to stick with who you are because they will find you, you know, and they'll realize that, you know, at some point when they're looking for someone, you'll be the template. They go like, you know, we're looking for somebody a bit like Tommie Earl Jenkins. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for someone like Tommie Earl Jenkins, you know, and then you become a template. You know what I mean? And that's interesting. We go, we don't need you to be him because we already got him. But, you know, it's wonderful to be able to know that you have solidified yourself in a way that you've accepted who you are, accepted where you want to go, where you want to be, and let that be the thing that emanates that you share with those people who support you in your work. You know, so be you.
That's awesome. That makes me think of John David Washington. You know, you mentioned Denzel Washington, and it's been a very interesting journey to watch him grow as an actor. Like originally he didn't want to really act, you know, that's why he did football, and then he stopped doing football and started doing the show Ballers, and then has kind of grown into acting from there. And it's been really interesting to see the roles that he's chosen and how his performances don't carry what his father, you know, was doing. He doesn't take his father into any role that he does, and it's really, really amazing to watch and see him grow as an actor.
Well, I think that's exactly, you know, and when you come from a legacy of, you know, well-known actors, you know, there's even there's a lot of young actors whose parents are incredibly well-known and have paved the way. In some respects, the fact that they can stand on their own and don't take, you know, yes, of course you can learn from your parents, and why not? You learn certain aspects of the industry and how it is, but I'm sure the one thing they will probably let you know is that you've got to find your own voice. You have got to, if this is what you want to do, find out who you are and be it and stay with that, because that will be your calling card. You know, I think, look, this is an industry, I'll say this, it's a very difficult industry to be in. And even for someone like myself, who I've been working since I was 14, but there's a multitude of millions of people who have no idea who I am. You know, I think that doing something like Death Stranding has opened a door to people to get to know a little bit more about me and really dig a little deeper and go, oh, this guy's, you know, he's been around for a bit. It's just that, you know, he hasn't, you know, been in the forefront of stuff. And those people, it doesn't mean that you aren't good. It just means that, you know, certain opportunities you haven't been able to have, or, you know, it's an industry where people take a chance. You know, someone like, you know, Death Stranding has been a blessing because someone like Kojima has taken a chance on and because of my ability, they saw my tape, they liked what I did. And, I don't know who else was up for this role. I don't know if there was another A-lister who didn't do it or wasn't available. All I know is I got the gig, and how I got it doesn't really matter to me. It just matters that I auditioned, I got it. How they chose it is of no consequence to me. I got the job. I need to now deliver what it is that I do. And this is what I do. But, to be standing along the Mads Mikkelsens, the Lindsay Wagners, the Norman Reeduses, all these people who are by right, sitting in the higher echelons of the industry, and there's me standing with them, and to us on the set, we're all actors. Not one person felt like they were above the other person. We all treated each other as if we had a right to be here. And I never once felt less than because my status wasn't as high as theirs, and I think at the end of the day, the respect is, you get on set, you hold your own, you do what you do, I'll do what I do. And I'll see you at the finish line.
That's awesome. I think that leads into like representation matters. And I've seen just a wonderful kind of outpouring of love for Die Hard Man, and I've seen people like say, hey, Die Hard Man really meant something to me to see see that on screen and stuff like that. How has that stuff affected you, the fan outcrying of or outpouring of support and love for the character?
Well, listen, here's the thing, as an artist, I think we produce the work and we produce it for our own ability to want to be able to feed our creative and nurture that creative child in us. But at the same time, I think we want our work to be taken in a way that it affects people in a positive way. And when I feel like I can do something that someone finds it touches them in a way or emotionally moves them, whether that means they hate the character because of what that character stood for, or whether they love the character because of what that character stood for. The amount of people that said, oh my God, man, I hated you through this game. I hated everything about you because I knew you were up to no good and this, that, and the other. And then at the end, I hated you because you pulled me in. You pulled me in and you made me do this. You actually made me cry or this, you know what I mean? And so then my job is done. My job isn't to make friends. My job is to deliver the story. How often do we watch amazing actors on TV and film and go, I hate this character. Oh my God, he's just, I hate everything about them. Well, you hate them because they're doing something to make you feel something. And that for me that means they have done their job. They have done their job because they've affected you. Do you know what I mean? And so when I feel I've had an incredible amount of love and support from people because of it, from around the world. I mean, places that I never dreamed that I would hear from people, whether that's through Instagram or through Twitter. And, and I remember once I tweeted quite a long time ago in the early stages, shouting out to those people around the world, leave me a picture or an emoji of your country's flag, letting me know where you're from and that, reaching the masses, because that's what the game was about, connecting. Yeah. And the endless list of these flags that came through from around the world, I was just like, I had no idea that it was reaching that amount of people. And for me, that gave me a whole sense of how big that this industry is, the gaming world. You can reach these people in this one medium far, far greater in some respects than you can by doing TV and film. It's huge. It's absolutely huge. But I feel a great amount of love from everyone. And I'm just really happy that they've embraced the character, that they've embraced me. And representation does matter. And I don't think a lot of people, I'm not one for shouting from the rooftops about who I am and what I am and my life and this, that, and the other. But I am one for being proud of who I am and what I do as an artist, and that people can accept me for that and and whether that be surprised by it. I get a lot of people going, "Oh my God, I had no idea," that this guy was gay or whatever. And and for me, it's not about that. To me, it's just about doing the work. And for me, it's we live our lives, creating characters, and that's what it's about. So that's why I always feel like every day we're acting. Every part of life in some form for us is acting, and and to be able to play a character is about it. And I feel very fortunate that I can be a part of an industry that allows me to go behind a microphone or stand in front of a camera and be somebody different that I'm not, but someone who's going to tell you a story or take you on a journey. Because I think it's important, and we're very fortunate to be able to be in a position to do that, to move people, to take them on a journey, to tell them a story, and leave them with a multitude of questions in their head afterwards.
Awesome. Normally, I would ask some rapid fire questions and get some fun little tidbit answers, but I kind of want to end there. That was awesome.
Amazing.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you.
I think those last three questions and your answers were just beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So yeah, that's gonna wrap up the show, everybody. Thank you, Tommie, so much for doing this. I know we've been trying to connect and make this happen for a little while now, so I'm glad it finally came together and we were able to do it. Where can people find you? I know you're doing some stuff on YouTube and Instagram.
Yeah.
So
well, I've got a YouTube channel that I started during the pandemic, and I started doing a little thing called Joy to the Word, which I need to get back to. Or you can find me on Twitter at TJ84, TEEJAYE 84, or at Tommie Earl Jenkins Official on Instagram, also on Facebook. So yeah, I'm on all those. I've got a website as well. So yeah, just look me up, shout me out, say hey, let me know if certainly if you've had a chance to watch this, and yeah, I'll keep you posted. Most of everything that I do, you will find on all or some of those platforms where I will share the news, good news of everything that's going on.
awesome. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you for watching the show, everyone. If you liked what you saw, please give us a thumbs up, share this video, subscribe, and stay tuned to simplysassyvids.com and the YouTube channel for more content just like this.
Awesome.